Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 Wizard build guide. This will be a guide for the Wizard's Firebird mirror image build, one of the best builds in the game and one of the best Wizard builds. This guide will be for Season 24, but should apply for non-season as well as future seasons. Season 24 is the season of ethereals, new powerful items, but we're going to cover what variant to play if you don't have an ethereal. So in this video, we're going to cover the gear, the skills, the gameplay that you want to rock this build. And if you want to follow along with the written guide on maxroll.gg, link to that will be in the video description. You can also always go there for the most up-to-date information on the build. I cannot edit this video, but that link will always be up to date with the best skills and items. The written guide is made by top player Chewy, and the gameplay footage you're seeing is also by Chewy. So first off, for this build, you definitely need the Firebird's 6-piece bonus, which we're going to get, or you could get, by either having the full 6 pieces of Firebirds or 5 pieces plus a Ring of Royal Grandeur. The Ring of Royal Grandeur you're going to get by farming Act 1 bounty bags. The Firebird's 2-piece bonus makes Disintegrate apply an ignite effect on enemies, and makes it such that when you die, you instead don't die. A meteor comes down and revives you. This gives you basically an extra life on a 60-second cooldown. Then the 4-piece, casting Disintegrate adds combustion stacks that reduce the cooldown of teleport by 2% per stack. Stacks up to 50 times, adding up to 100% cooldown reduction on teleport. You gain 80% damage reduction while maintaining combustion stacks. So we always want to be keeping our combustion stacks up, huge amount of damage reduction, and basically free teleports. And note that this just says casting, not hitting enemies. So when you pop into a rift, just shoot at the air, build up your stacks before you engage enemies. Then the 6-piece, you gain 5,000% increased damage while Ignite is applied to a target. Hitting an ignited enemy with a non-channeling fire spell deals Ignite damage multiplied by combustion stacks. Another reason why we want to keep those stacks at max. And it's very easy to do this. Just a few quick taps of Disintegrate will fill up your stacks really fast. So with this build, very important that you ignite all enemies so that they are now susceptible to massive damage. Now another item that this build will use that adds a huge damage multiplier is the Death Wish one-handed sword. While channeling Disintegrate for at least 1 second, all damage is increased. And then we'll also want to work in the Orb of Infinite Depth as another critical piece of damage mitigation and damage amplification. Each time you hit an enemy with Explosive Blast, your damage is increased by 10%, and your damage reduction is increased by 20% for 6 seconds. This effect can stack up to 4 times. That's 40% more damage and 80% damage reduction. We're going to want to maintain 100% uptime on this buff by constantly spamming Explosive Blast, Chain Reaction. Now the other items we'll take will help enhance this build. That's going to include for pushing a convention of elements. You rarely see a pushing build without this item. When the pace is slower and you have time to work around your rotation, you want to ensure that everything lines up while you're in your fire window and you're dealing your max damage then. Because we're using the Ring of Royal Grandeur, we're going to work in 2 other sets, Oghilds via Shoulders and Bracers. This is a crafted set. You want to make sure you're crafting the level 70 version and not the lower level version. This reduces all damage by 15%, increases damage dealt by 30%, 3-piece bonus, reduces damage from elites by 30%, increases damage against elites by 30%. And then Captain Crimson's reduces all cooldowns by 20%, reduces all resource costs by 20%, and then the 3-piece, damage dealt is increased by your percentage of cooldown reduction, and damage taken is reduced by your percentage of resource cost reduction. So we'll be building up cooldown to increase our damage. In our cube, we're going to take some Tasker and Theo gloves. Increase attack speed of your pets by 50%. This is a pet build. It's a mirror image build. Our mirror images will be the ones dealing the damage, so we want them to attack faster. Our Firebird 6-piece is we apply a big chunk of damage whenever we hit an enemy with a non-channeling fire skill. Our multiple mirror images, each time one of them hits with a non-channeling fire skill, they're going to be applying our ignite damage multiplied by combustion stacks. Now you'll note that we're also taking an Enforcer gem. This is the pet gem, however we only need it to be level 25. Why? Your pets take 90% less damage. When you're pushing, your mirror images tend to die rather quickly, so giving them that 90% damage reduction really helps them stay alive. However, it is not the pets themselves dealing damage, so getting this to higher level will not add that damage multiplier to our pets. They are strictly dealing the ignite damage multiplied by combustion stacks. This is a very atypical pet build. Lastly, we're also working in a Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose. This gives us more situational toughness, more situational damage. We're going to take a Taeguk Legendary Gem. This gives us more damage and more armor while we channel. And we're going to take a Bane of the Trapped. This is just an amazing gem. If an enemy is crowd controlled, they're going to get a huge amount more damage dealt to them. Now, for your ethereal, wizards have 3 ethereals to pick from, one of which is a 2-hander. For GR pushing, you want to go with, ideally, the Wizard Spike. And this is for this power over here, consecutive hits to enemies, increases damage by 10%, up to 100%. So that's up to double damage when you have time to apply 10 hits to an enemy. Not for speed content, but for pushing, this will be the best ethereal. So the ideal legendary power you want on that ethereal is going to be either the Death Wish or the Orb of Infinite Depth. Whichever one rolls on your Wizard Spike, put the other one in the cube so that you have both of those legendary effects. Now, if you don't have a Wizard Spike, you can go with an Oculus. This isn't as good as the Wizard Spike, but it's still better than not having an ethereal. And again, if you're either running non-season, a future season, or simply don't have one of those 2 ethereals, just equip in your hand the Death Wish and in the cube the Orb of Infinite Depth. Now, we'll go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear, but first, the skills. We're going to take Spectral Blade, Flame Blades. Each enemy hit increases the damage of your fire spells by 1%, up to a max of 30% for 5 seconds. The main reason for taking Flame Blades is to have a signature spell that is going to be cast by our mirror images. So our mirror images will be attacking with the fire spell Flame Blades, which will trigger the 6-piece Firebirds. Now, we will manually be casting it every now and then in order to try to gain as much of a damage buff as possible, but this isn't as integral. Next, we're taking Disintegrate, Chaos Nexus. We don't need Disintegrate to be a fire spell. We're just using Disintegrate to keep up our stacks, as well as to ignite as many enemies as possible. With Chaos Nexus, while channeling the beam, you become charged with energy and discharge it at nearby enemies, dealing damage as arcane. Furthermore, keeping a source of arcane damage will help us with our elemental exposure passive, which we'll get to in a bit. But basically, with Disintegrate Chaos Nexus, you can build up your stacks real fast as you're going to zap a bunch of enemies, and you're also applying that ignite to them. Next, we're taking Explosive Blast, Chain Reaction. Instead of a single explosion, release a chain of 3 consecutive explosions, each dealing a bunch of damage, but the damage is irrelevant. We're really just doing this to maintain our Orb of Infinite Depth buff stacks. Next, we'll take Teleport, Safe Passage. With the Safe Passage rune, you take 25% less damage for 5 seconds after teleporting. We have no cooldown on teleport thanks to our 4-piece stacks. Next, we're taking Mirror Image Duplicates. Quite simply, more mirror images means we are applying our 6-piece ignite damage stacks more often. Lastly, we're going to take Frost Nova Bone Chill. Enemies take 33% more damage while frozen or chilled by Frost Nova. This is both defensive and offensive. We're crowd controlling enemies so that we're not getting hit, but also we're now dealing more damage to them. For our passives, we're going to take Evocation, 20% cooldown reduction. Not only does that help us use our skills more often, that also translates into more damage thanks to Captain Crimson's. We're going to take Audacity. You deal more damage to enemies that are close to you. This is another reason that we're taking Frost Nova, to allow us to get close to enemies. Unwavering Will, standing still for 1.5 seconds, increases the following attributes: armor, all resist, and damage. We're channeling, so we're standing still for 1.5 seconds. And lastly, we'll take Elemental Exposure. Damaging enemies with Arcane, Cold, Fire, or Lightning will cause them to take 5% more damage from your attacks for 5 seconds, stacks up to 4 times for 20% damage. So we have a source of fire damage, that's 5%. We have our source of arcane damage via Disintegrate, we're up to 10%. Then this is one of the very rare times where your weapon damage type matters. you ideally want to roll on your weapon either cold or lightning damage. This will help us get that third stack of elemental exposure. As for exactly what we want on every piece of gear, on our shoulders, intelligence, vitality, life, cooldown reduction. This build does not benefit from area damage. Don't take area damage anywhere. In fact, not even in your Paragon points. All they'll serve to do is add lag to the game. The Firebird 6-piece does not benefit from area damage. For our helm, intelligence, vitality, crit chance, and a diamond for cooldown reduction. For our amulet, fire, crit, crit. Gloves, intelligence, crit, crit, cooldown. Chest, intelligence, vitality, life. We're prioritizing vitality and life percent because our mirror images scale off of our life pool, not our armor or all resists. That said, for the sockets in our chests and pants, we're going to take either ruby or emeralds for more armor. For our bracers, fire, intelligence, vitality, crit chance. Belt, intelligence, vitality, life, armor. Pants, intelligence, vitality, armor. Boots, intelligence, vitality, all resist, armor. For our convention of elements, crit chance, crit damage, raw damage. And for our compass rows, intelligence, crit chance, crit damage, and cooldown reduction. For your offhand, you want that raw damage, the 20% fire damage, crit chance, cooldown, and then very important for sustain, arcane power on crit. Again, single target against the Rift Guardian. If you just sit and channel, you will burn through your resource. You won't be critting enemies enough. So you might want to lay off and really just channel during your fire rotation. And outside of that, just do the bare minimum to keep up your buffs. For your ethereal, again, the most important thing is that legendary property. The passive, it's okay if you have a bad passive on your ethereal, but best in slot, you can go with Unstable Anomaly for an extra life. You can go with Blur for some damage reduction. Now, this build is particularly susceptible to being crowd controlled by enemies, so wherever you can squeeze it in as a secondary affix on your gear, get crowd control resistance. For your Paragon points, max out your move speed, then your arcane power to be able to channel for longer, then intelligence, although you first want to put into vitality to get up to about 1,000,000 life. Again, this is more than what is generally recommended because you want to keep your mirror images alive. For offense, cooldown, crit chance, crit damage, attack speed. For defense, life, armor, all resist, life regen. For utility, resource cost reduction, life per hit, pickup radius, don't put anything into area damage. For your follower, we're going with an Enchantress. We're going to give her the Hand of the Prophet focus to give her access to all of her skills for a bunch of tremendous buffs. This means, however, that we need to keep her alive. The Enforcer gem thankfully helps with that. She counts as a pet, she will take 90% less damage. To further help her though, we're giving her an Esoteric Alteration gem and a Mutilation Guard gem. Then our stat priorities on her gear will be first Intelligence, then vitality, then life, then armor, then all resist, then life per hit, and then attack speed. Key items we'll want to put on her include the Flavor of Time. This emanates to us, making our pylon effects last twice as long when we click a pylon. We'll give her Nemesis Bracers. These emanate to us, so that when we click on a shrine or a pylon, we spawn an enemy champion. We'll give her an Oculus Ring. Whenever we kill an enemy, there's a chance that we spawn a golden pool. When you stand in that golden pool, you deal more damage, or your mirror images do. We're going to give her a Blind Faith Helm because of the secondary 40% chance to blind on hit. By blinding enemies, they're going to be attacking our mirror images less often, keeping them alive longer. This is particularly helpful against the Rift Guardian. We're going to give her Ice Climbers so that she cannot be ground controlled. And then just for stacking attack speed, again, not the most critical thing, but Witching Hour Belt, Talrasha's chest piece, 2 Piece of Canes. Now, if you're doing speed Greater Rifts, right? If you're completing Greater Rifts in about 2 minutes, you don't need all that extra toughness. Here are the changes you'll want to make. We're going to drop the Oghild set. We're keeping Captain Crimson's, but now we're equipping as a bracer Ashnagar's Blood Bracer. This increases the potency of your shields by 100%. We're going to drop the Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge. We're instead going to take a Squirt's Necklace. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. And as long as we have an Absorb Shield up, we are not taking damage. Taking damage for Squirt counts as losing health. So we want to build up our Absorb Shields to benefit from this double damage from Squirts. We're going to take the Focus and Restraint Rings. Dropping that convention, this more than doubles our damage. Attacking with a Generator. makes us deal 50% more damage, and then attacking with a spender makes us deal an additional 50% on that already buffed 50% for over 100% increased damage. Keeping our pets alive won't be an issue anymore, so we're dropping the Enforcer gem and taking a Bane of the Powerful. Gain 20% increased damage after killing an elite pack, and gain 15% increased damage versus elites, and take 15% reduced damage from elites. In speed content, you want to have your Bane of the Powerful buff up at all times once you've killed your first pack. We're swapping out our chest and pant gems for topazes for raw damage, and we're swapping out the diamond on our helm for a topaz for resource cost reduction. Because with this build, we're actually going to want, ideally as an ethereal, Mang Song's Lesson. Because of that, we are losing out on the arcane power on crit that we would have in our offhand. However, we do get some arcane power regeneration from Mang Songs, but overall it's just a huge amount of damage. The most damage you can do for speedrunning content. We're dropping Frost Nova and instead taking Magic Weapon Deflection. Magic Weapon gives us a damage buff, but Deflection, when performing an attack, gain a protective shield that absorbs 4% of your life in damage. This helps us maintain our Squirts buff. We're also going to swap out our Tasker and Theo in the cube for a Mantle of Channeling. While we're channeling Disintegrate, you deal more damage and you take less damage. This is to help make up for the loss of Oghild's power. We're also going to sub out Elemental Exposure and Unwavering Will for Galvanizing Ward, which gives us an Absorb Shield, and Dominance, which gives us an Absorb Shield. With all these Absorb Shields, we should be able to maintain our Squirts buff at all times. Then, if you're doing Nephilim Rifts, Speed T16 Rifts, we can make a couple other tweaks. We're gonna lose Focus and Restraint, we don't need all that damage anymore. We're gonna take Retchel's Ring of Larceny, so that you gain a 60% increased move speed for 4 seconds after fearing an enemy. The ring itself carries a 5.1% chance to fear on hit. We're going to take an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is because our main damage dealer now is going to shift to Explosive Blast Chain Reaction, which we're going to want to be able to proc as much as possible because that's our damage dealer. The mirror images simply don't kill fast enough at T16 or coordinated enough, and if we want to be blitzing through, we now want to be relying on Explosive Blast. We're also swapping out our Taeguk for a boon of the Hoarder. When you kill an enemy, there's a chance to drop gold, and you gain 30% increased move speed for 2 seconds after picking up gold. This helps us go a lot faster, and we're going to combine that with, in our cube, instead of a Mantle of Channeling, we're taking a Gold Wrap. On gold pickup, gain armor for 5 seconds equal to the amount we picked up. This combination makes us virtually unkillable by having enough toughness by picking up gold to survive T16. We're also swapping out our bracers for Ranslar's Folly, and this is specifically because it buffs Energy Twister to pull in enemies. It's going to group enemies. We don't care about the damage buff, but we're combining this by dropping our two-handed Mang Song's Lesson and taking the Etched Sigil. While channeling, you cast Energy Twister every second. So we're just using these two items in order to be spawning twisters that pull enemies in. I hit my head. Grouping them such that you are able to mow them down faster with your attacks. To further help with that cooldown, we're taking the Ingum Weapon. Your skill cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack, and we also want an Echoing Fury. Slaying enemies engulfs the wielder into a frenzy. This makes you attack faster and move faster. Now, whichever one goes in the cube is irrelevant. The ethereal you will want here is the Oculus. Critical hits grant 7 arcane power. This is a huge amount of arcane power on crit, and this is going to really help us with our sustain. So we're swapping out our mirror image skill for Diamond Skin Prism. This gives us more toughness, but more importantly, reduce the arcane power cost of all skills by 9 while Diamond Skin is active. We want to be running so many different cooldown things that we have 100% uptime on this. We want to be constantly channeling Disintegrate in order to proc our Orots, so that we can be constantly spamming Explosive Blast Chain Reaction. We no longer need Flame Blades, so we're instead taking Familiar Arcanaut. This will make us regen 4.5 arcane power every second. Now again, the damage of Explosive Blast doesn't matter here. We're just using that to apply our 6-piece damage to multiple enemies in rapid succession. We're also changing the rune on Disintegrate to Convergence. Increase the width of the beam, allowing it to hit more enemies. We're going to drop the Dominance passive because we don't need all that toughness, all those shields now, and we're instead taking Illusionist. When you use Teleport, your move speed is increased by 30% for 3 seconds. Then our Enchantress for our T16 setup, we're going to give her an Avarice Band, which will emanate to us. Each time you pick up gold, you increase your gold and health pick up radius by 1 yard for 10 seconds. This will let us gobble up any gold on screen, synergizing with our Boon of the Hoarder and Gold Wrap. We're going to give her 2 pieces of the Cane set and 2 pieces of the Sages set, along with the Ring of Royal Grandeur, to gain the 3-piece bonuses of both. This will give us more Death's Breaths, as well as more Greater Rift Keys, meaning we don't have to do as many T16 rifts. We'll also take Gloves of Worship, which emanate to us. Shrine effects last for 10 minutes. You don't find shrines in Greater Rifts, but in T16, you're going to get those nice 10-minute shrine effects. Nice little buff. And that's going to wrap up this video guide. But do stay tuned for more guides and tier list video on the best builds for Season 24. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.